Different families pass down different heirlooms. Some families pass down land, some pass down recipes, and some pass down anxiety, addiction, and unfinished love stories. Most people never realize they've inherited it until they catch themselves living it. And the moment one person refuses to keep passing it down, the lineage begins to change. Sanbonani, Dumelang, Togozani, sending you a love because love is the highest, and I'm in highest vibration. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Mmatshepo Gaspa Mazibuko, a highly sought after spiritual consultant in womb and gut wellness, energy alignment, and soul-led wealth strategy, helping women escape being sacrificed at the altar of masculine success so they can live their wildest dreams in a calm, easeful, and pleasurable way. Sawubona, welcome. Today, I would like to talk about something many families quietly experience but hardly ever give a name. Inheritance. But not just the inheritance we can see, but the inheritance we live. Because when we look at our families, certain patterns begin to appear. Some families inherit worry. When you observe the household or the lineage, everyone is anxious about money, about the future, about what could possibly go wrong. There are families that inherit emotional silence, where people feel very deeply, but nobody speaks about anything. Some families inherit sacrifice, where love means exhaustion, where someone is always giving more than they receive. And some inherit the belief that life must be difficult in order to be meaningful. That struggle somehow proves their value. But there are other inheritance that run through families too, like illnesses, addiction, unstable relationships, or a generation, or generations for that matter, of absent fathers and broken partnerships. And when we see these things repeating themselves again and again, it can feel like something mystical is happening, like maybe a family is cursed or something. But very often, what we are witnessing is actually something else. What we are witnessing is patterns being repeated across generations. Patterns of biology, patterns of coping, patterns of survival. I would like for us to talk about illness for a moment. When illness runs through a lineage, many people assume that it is purely genetics. But there is something fascinating that science has discovered called epigenetics. Epigenetics means that the environment experienced by one generation can influence how genes behave in the next generation. So, for example, chronic stress in one generation can increase inflammation in the next generation. Trauma can influence how stress hormones respond in descendants. Even things like poverty, emotional pressure, and environmental stress can shape how the body regulates itself across generations. But the beautiful and powerful part is that epigenetics are not permanent sentences. They respond to lifestyle, they respond to environment, they respond to how someone lives their life, which means when one person in a lineage begins changing how they eat, how they rest, how they move, how they regulate stress, they're not only improving their own health, they're changing the environment that future biology will grow inside. Which means one person's lifestyle can begin to shift the health of an entire lineage. Now, let's talk about addiction. Many families experience generations of alcohol abuse or substance dependency, and again, it can feel like something mysterious is happening, but addiction is often deeply connected to emotional pain that was never really processed, and it can be connected to nervous system dysregulation, to environments where people were never taught how to process stress. When children grow up watching adults numb stress with alcohol or drugs, the nervous system learns something specific. Pain equals escape, or stress equals numbing, and over time, that pattern becomes familiar. But when someone in that lineage learns another way to process pain, something powerful happens. Maybe the person decides to go to therapy, maybe they learn emotional expression, maybe they find healthier coping mechanisms like movement, yoga, going to the gym, breath work, journaling, or even community support. They are not just helping themselves. They are interrupting the script the next generation might have followed. Then, another inheritance is the relationship patterns. Families where fathers are absent, families where love is unstable, families where relationships constantly break down and there's a high rate of divorces. These patterns are often connected to something psychologists call attachment models. Children learn love through observation, through watching. They watch how conflict is handled. They watch how affection is expressed. They watch how commitment works. They watch how men and women treat each other in the lineage. These observations quietly become the nervous system's map of what love looks like. So, if generations grow up without healthy relationship models, the nervous system may gravitate towards emotional distance, unstable partnerships, or avoidance of commitment. And this is not because this is the outcome the people in that bloodline want, but because the nervous system trusts what feels familiar. And the moment one person learns something different, like healthier boundaries or secure attachment styles or communication and upgrading their self-worth, that moment becomes another interruption in a pattern. Breaking generational patterns does not mean blaming your family. It means recognizing something very human, that every generation inherits an emotional environment, be it a way of coping, a way of responding to stress, a way of loving, you name it. However, every generation also has the opportunity to respond differently. Sometimes that response looks like therapy. Sometimes it looks like changing how children are raised. Sometimes it looks like choosing healthier relationships. Sometimes it looks like learning how to regulate the nervous system. And sometimes it looks like something very simple: refusing to normalize the pain that everyone else accepted as inevitable. That quiet refusal can change more than we realize, because patterns survive through repetition, and the moment repetition stops, the pattern begins to dissolve. So maybe the question is not how do I break every generational quote-unquote curse in my family. Maybe the real question is, what am I ready to stop carrying forward? Because sometimes the greatest shift in a bloodline begins very quietly, with one person who decides that survival is no longer the family tradition, and that living well will be the new inheritance. So are you ready to live well? what habits are you ready to let go of? And what new habits are you ready to start? So you can create a new script and new patterns for the generation to come. Looking forward to hearing from you. Leave us a comment, drop us an email, or join our WhatsApp channel so you can be amongst our major contributors to our topics and these incredibly adult conversations. Looking forward to catching you on the next one. Stay blessed. Ashe.